There are a lot of different ways to collect video games, and I'll go over in exact detail in another video, but in short, I collect games based on my desire to actually play them. But I'm also mindful to variants, and sometimes those find my way into my collection on purpose, but a lot of times it's purely by accident. Variants range from different editions of systems like the 3DS and 2DS, all the way down to typos and slight label changes. So does that impact the price of the games? I'll focus on Nintendo since 1, they're pretty collectible, and 2, they're most likely to have these variants. So let's take a look at the 3DS for example. There are a ton of different variants, and what makes them valuable is the systems have a very unique design. In fact, some system variants are most sought after since people typically buy one console for the lifespan of that console. The Majoras Mask new 3DS XL was crazy hard to find, and now finding a complete in box is pretty hard unless you want to get a new one. The last new version sold in February for $600. Compare that to the ready available 2DS XL, and most people will choose that instead. The Link Between Worlds 3DS XL is hovering around $160, and it's a bit easier to find. And the issue is that the new 3DS or 2DS is faster and has better tracking for 3D, so in this case the older system the less collectible it is, at least until the system is discontinued completely. But the regular 3DS and 2DS variants are fairly easy to track down for retail price or a bit lower, and I'm very tempted to pick up that new Shield 2DS from GameStop. So let's move down the rabbit hole a little bit further and focus on Amiibos. Remember these things? Nintendo comes out with toys to life. They're really awesome toys and they sell incredibly well, creating a shortage in the United States for lesser known characters like NES or Wii Fit Trainer. As the Amiibo brand grew and Nintendo started to reprint popular Amiibos, collectors noticed that the back of the box had changed. So instead of just the Wii U on the box, now the 3DS was on, and even further down the line the Switch was added, and eventually the Wii U will be removed from the back completely. I have a Smash Link that I bought because I wanted to unlock Epona in Breath of the Wild. Mine is clearly not the first edition because mine has a Switch on the back of the box. But as far as pricing concerned, it really doesn't make a difference between the first and last edition of the Amiibo. Currently you can get a first edition NES for $13, which is roughly the same as the later editions. The theory that I have is that the print run doesn't really matter if the product inside stays the same. And to test that theory, let's take a look at something from 30 years ago. And we're talking about the NES 5 screws. Now for those of you who don't know, the Nintendo Entertainment System has cartridges, and the first generation of those carts had 5 screws on the back. Later versions of the cartridges would have 3 screws and a clip to hold the cart together. And this is a pretty interesting collecting niche that not a lot of people actually pay attention to when they first started doing this, so some of them are pretty rare. Take for example Alpha Mission. The regular game costs about $7, but the 5 screw variant will run you at least $65. And if you got a Mike Tyson Punch-Out 5 screw, well that's $700 loose compared to the $20 for the regular version. But on the other hand, games like Castlevania and Excitebike aren't going for too much of a difference in price, mainly because these sold a ton, and I would guess that Mike Tyson's Punch-Out was made towards the end of the Nintendo 5 screw variant. Now let's talk about something that doesn't really change the game itself, and those are misprints, and these offer a way for collectors to set their collection apart from the rest. Nintendo has an interesting run when it comes to misprints. Did you know that Majora's Mask was incorrectly listed as a 4-player game in the manual? I know because there's a note card in the manual correcting the typo. Later versions of the game don't have this typo in it. What about the Breath of the Wild for the Wii U? Did you know that you can play with motion controls? Well, you can't, but it's listed on the back of the box and corrected for future versions. These misprints do add some collectability, but unless it's a glaring misprint that caused the company to destroy all evidence of it, the price isn't really going to differ significantly from the correct version. And speaking of corrected versions, variants include software upgrades as well. These aren't common nowadays because of patches that are delivered online before you even boot up the game, but in the age of discs and cards, if you released the game with a bug or needed to change something, you needed to release another version on the next print. Of course, most developers don't even mention this. Some of the most common are from the Nintendo 64 era. The first version of Ocarina of Time has Chance in the Fire Temple and Ganon spits blood, but in later versions those are removed. Super Mario Kart has versions that affect the length of the train, and Turok Rage Wars has the biggest variant. There's a glitch in the first version of the game where you would always fail a mission and couldn't progress any further. The only way to fix this was either to get a Game Shark, or you could send your cart to Acclaim and they would mail you the corrected version. The corrected version is a gray cart versus the original black cart. And since not a lot of people sent in for a replacement, the gray cart is more sought after. The real kick is that since not a lot of people are aware of these variants, you can still find these for a reasonable price compared to their popular counterpart. The difference in price is only apparent when somebody points it out in the sale. The more obvious the variant, the bigger the swing in price. And greatest hits are the most obvious of these software variants. Greatest hits are possibly the only variant out there that can lose value in the long term. The only thing that I like about greatest hits is that when a game goes $20, GameStop treats the original at the same price, which means that the first version of Wind Waker HD gets reduced to $20. Other than that, they're incredibly ugly and don't offer much to the original game. Sure, there are some greatest hits out there that offer some bonus content, but mostly they're the final version of the popular game, which is great if you're looking to play a popular game at an affordable price. And the most recent variant is the NES Classic variant. Smash JT had mentioned that there's a change in the packaging of the NES Classic. The ESRB logo is now on the bottom right hand corner of the box. And while Smash JT noted that this was for 2018, it actually wasn't. My 2016 version has the logo in the corner as well. And it looks like only the first run of NES Classics are missing that ESRB logo. But I'll admit, I didn't even know of the variant until I saw Jeff's video, and I'm pretty sure not a lot of people knew it either. Sure, they'll try to tell you that they have the first edition in hand, but if you look at some listings, it's the same box as the one that you can find in 2018. Just like the Amiibos, this is really only important to people who want you to know that they got theirs first. The only way that this variant could have an immediate impact on the price is if Nintendo had changed the internals of the NES Classic, specifically fixing the hackability of this little system. And it doesn't appear that they did that, so the first edition probably isn't going to be overly desirable to a large amount of people since the console is indistinguishable from its 2016 counterpart. It's cool that there's some variants out there, and it's what makes game collecting fun. Time will tell if these variants will be worth something in the future, but by the looks of it, it doesn't appear to be the case. Variants have to differ a lot more than just some print on the box. At least to me, the version has to have some positive change. Like for instance, if Konami actually does release a Metal Gear Solid collection for new consoles this year, and if they leave off Hideo Kojima's name from the Metal Gears, I will assume that the previous versions will jump in value. But I'm not a stickler for minor changes since it doesn't affect what the game looks like on my shelf. But I'm curious to know what you think. Do you make a point to collect these variants, especially if you already own a copy? Or do you just collect games you like, and if there's a variance, it's just a bonus? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, hit that like button, and if you're new here, consider subscribing for future retro and modern gaming content. I'm Super Nicktendo, and thanks for watching.